Oh my gosh. Can you believe that we have finished season 4? I
I don't
can't believe.
feel 4 years older.
I know. Today we're going to reflect on our last season. Go back, look in the past, see, talk about what we've talked about. And then we're going to share with you a medley of topics that we plan to tackle in season 5.
Or for the people who just wants to see the summary, just go to our show notes.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that too, but you would much rather watch or listen to us.
Well, no, but at least you can get a preview. I mean, we're not going to put everything in the show notes, right? But
Naturally.
pretend you're going to the notes to look for the paragraph guy, right? Here's a summary of what's the topics you're going to talk about.
Yep, absolutely. So, in saying that, welcome to our show, The Business Behind Small Business. And every episode, generally, we dive into one area and what you need to build a lasting business. So, today we are going to do a medley. We're going to talk a little bit about some topics that we are hoping to tackle. And so we're really excited to get started on that. So things are going to be a little different with today's episode. I'm Savannah Stone.
Tiffany KO.
And no one gets to a million without getting a little dirty. There's a lot of business behind small business, so let's get to it. All right. So, one of the topics that we're going to be talking about in season 5 is DEI because why not?
And now
Everybody's talking about DEI.
everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, everybody. But, it is important for us to try to unwrap or unravel what it means for you and your business. Because, is it going to have an effect on your business? And what kind of effect could it have on your business? What do you think?
How much of the trickle down effect there was for the DEI programs on small business? I don't know. Did you see a lot of people with DEI programs in their small business, Savannah?
Know that they necessarily have DEI programs per se. Perhaps they adopt them without officially adopting them.
Okay.
So I don't know. And you know what? I keep seeing, I'm trying to be very unbiased about it all, but
Can we be unbiased?
it's
Can
so
we?
hard to be.
We're two women who weren't born in the States.
I was born here, but I might not have come off the
Really?
boat. I grew up on the docks, so I didn't like come off the boat, but I grew up on the docks.
I didn't
So
realize you were born here for some reason. I always thought it was okay.
no one ever thinks I was born here, so you're not alone on that. Because I had to learn English. I didn't learn English until I was like 5. So, because my mom didn't speak English, and
Hmm.
she learned her English from Price is Right and Young and the Restless. So,
Oh, that is so cute. My mom learned it from Little House on the Prairie. I
yeah.
know.
So, and no one spoke English in my house, nor did I have any white friends. I didn't have anybody like to emulate or to learn how to be a member of society with. So,
So I would say that we are allowed to have our opinions about DEI, or we have a very interesting perspective about
yeah,
DEI.
I agree. I agree. And also like what have we experienced? Have we ever experienced it? And there was variations of DEI during our upbringings. So what do we think?
So, personally, in my experience, when, with all the small business and everything, especially with my clientele who are small business, and we're talking about like $5 million and below, $1 to $5 million. I would say that I think everyone's too busy trying to make money to really consider it. Not that I would even say like the opposite where they needed it. I just don't think a lot of people thought about it until it became the forefront in the last few years. But I'm not sure if any small business I worked with really had the capacity or the resources to set aside a program split for it. I feel like that was a lot more of the big corporate companies, the big mega businesses
For sure.
that had the ability to do that.
And it's an interesting offshoot that you and I had talked about that we never quite turned into an episode, which was when you walk into a room, who do you normally gravitate to?
Hmm.
And how men generally go to men, women generally go to women. And there was this whole um, series of episodes that we never quite formulated that perhaps we can dive into, especially now that it seems to be more important. Not that it wasn't important before, but seems more impactful now is, sometimes I'm looking for the curly girls, and I'm walking over to the ones that I think might be adjacent to my ethnicity. And am I doing that subconsciously? Am I doing it consciously? And what does that say about me? So I think there's a lot that we can tackle with DEI and what that could potentially mean to you. It's not always about who you're hiring, is what I'm saying. It could be about who you're networking with,
Mhm.
who you're doing business with, who's doing business with you, all of the things.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think, and it's not this way because business is about human beings, right? And human beings are not created equal. We all have our own bias and experience and everything like that. So I would almost like to say in an ideal world, business is somewhat colorblind, gender blind, everything blind to everything but the color green.
Right.
So if you come to the table, you bring value, you're able to make revenue, you're able to bring profit. A lot of people don't see color or gender at the end of the day. But it's the initial part of it that's kind of interesting because, like you said, like some people don't, maybe not even get the opportunity because you gravitate toward people you are familiar with. So I'm not gonna lie, I've definitely, gotten some advantages from other Asian people because we speak Asian, we're like, hey, we
Mhm.
get each other, right?
Yep.
And that's also a part of our culture, which is to, well, kind of part of our culture. There's definitely so like our culture is so prejudiced that I'm just like maybe not. We're not the best at working together all the time, but in America sometimes you run into the people who are like, "Hey, I'm Asian, you're Asian, like let's help each other out." It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I assume, other people are like that. They tend to help out people they're a lot more familiar with because you feel comfortable with them.
Coming from our minorities perspective, it will be an interesting conversation that we have when we do that episode. So, moving on from that, another episode that we're planning to do is how to find your value within your field. Now, this was a topic that you and I talked about when we were at a networking event, and there was a woman who was struggling with what her voice should be. And I felt for her. I felt like she didn't quite know how to articulate her value to her clientele, um, because she was still new to business. And I felt like, I've certainly been there before. And I feel like I'm there still. I feel like it's still something of a struggle, even 14 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think every new business owners tend to struggle with it, especially if you're selling some kind of service, something that is not tangible. I think it's really hard to put a dollar value on it. You kind of do it a little subjectively, and it's a reflection of how competent you feel in yourself, which sometimes is hard when you're
Mm-hmm.
starting out.
Mm-hmm.
But, we got to remember that just because we're good at something and it's easy to us doesn't mean that there is less value in it because it comes easy to us.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of experience that go into that makes it easy for ourselves. So really when you're deciding your pricing, you're kind of packing in there all the experience and all the trial and errors and all the
Right.
time that you've put into it that nobody gets to see today.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the reason why they get this amazing outcome in a short
Mm-hmm.
period of time versus them hiring somebody who's a little novice and are, floundering and figuring it
Mm-hmm.
out. I think speaking up and asking for your price is just a common challenge that as business owners, to be quite honest, you probably want to get over that as soon as possible because I even, had amazing clients my first year, but totally underpriced myself because I didn't know any better. I just didn't know. And I'm like, why would anybody pay that much, right? Like for when I started was bookkeeping work. So those clients stayed with me, but dang it, it was a hard trying to raise those prices after the fact.
Yeah.
So hard. And there were definitely still a handful of clients that when I sold the business, I definitely was still underpriced because to get them up to my retail price at that point, it would have been like a 400% difference.
Yes.
So I did
Yeah.
some myself.
And it is difficult to determine whether value pricing is the way to go.
Well, even if you don't value price, people underprice their own hourly rate
Correct.
all the time.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. So that'll be a fantastic conversation to have. Moving on, we're going to talk about figuring out what your profit percentages should be when you're looking at your financials. So let me explain. If you're looking at your payroll, and Tiffany and I were just talking about that, you're looking at your payroll and it's eating up 70% of your overall profit, something's wrong. And that goes for all of the other things that are in your profit and loss. It's important to know what percentages, what your ratios should look like. And I don't know that there's enough easily attainable information out there for our business owners. And maybe we can help them with figuring out easy formulas, easy ways to figure that out.
So I think if you are lucky enough to be in an industry that has a lot of associations, usually those associations will have some kind of benchmark um, margins for you to use, right? So if you're like in a trade business, especially, like they have a whole bunch of things that they have available of what kind of is the perfect margin for you to strive for. And then for the rest of the business, I mean, like our business and finance, accounting, consulting, like that's where it gets to be a little bit wild, wild west. I feel
Yes.
like even restaurants have very good, like, comparable information of how much you should make.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, in lieu of that, I mean, I feel like every time I look at financials for a business, at a minimum, you want gross profit margins of 50%.
Mm-hmm.
At a minimum, right? So, which means for every $100 you make, only $50 goes into cost of services or cost of goods sold.
Right.
At a minimum, right? You don't want to go into anything higher than that because then you drop below 50%.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sweet spot for the net profit margin is always between, it's always around 20%. For most businesses, 20% is a little rich. So it probably swings between 10 and 20.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're somewhere in that range, 9 times out of 10, you're doing pretty well for
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Yep. Well, I'd like to think that there are, well, then I feel like I've come across enough people who are, for example, I recently met a very young, very lovely lady who is a government contractor that opened up a little restaurant.
Mm.
And all of this is new to her. I feel as though I've been coming across quite a few people who are going across their industries,
Yeah.
getting involved in something that looks great on the outside, and then they get in it and they're like,
Well, restaurants have pretty thin margins, so that's what they
right,
are struggle with to begin.
right. So it can be murky.
Well, I think the margins are so important for any small, like any business owners to know, and they don't think about it because all they think about is really dollars and dollars and dollars when they start. But if you aim for margin percentages rather than dollars, you'll
Hmm.
end up in the long run a lot better because
That's
then
right.
you can take out the confusion of seeing dollars and cents and you're just aiming for a percentage.
Hmm.
And I would say that I think if anybody's really struggling with that, like, one, hopefully talk to another business owner who got a handle on their books. But I mean, you're absolutely right, Savannah. Like, most owners can be in business for 10, 20 years and still don't realize how important their margin is, or they have very elementary or basic bookkeeping that's being done that doesn't track the margins properly. So you might
Exactly.
be looking at your profit and loss, but if things aren't in the right accounts, you're not looking at your margins in the same light because things aren't being placed in the way it should be.
Hmm.
That's also a lot of the struggle too.
So in saying that, I think one of the most exciting conversations we'll be having is AI versus CFO. Could ChatGPT ever be a part of your executive team? Now that I think is both exciting and scary.
I think for us, yes. I think the writing is on a wall for our industry. Oh God, I'm gonna get, well, luckily I'm not part of any association, so I guess they can't boot me out. But I mean, this is gonna be an unpopular comment is that I think ChatGPT or any kind of AI program will quickly replace most of services in our accounting and finance industry. Sorry.
I'm not too concerned. No one can ever be me.
But I think it's good though. I think it's a good thing. I really do. I think it is way to allow small businesses to get started up at a lower cost because I mean, let's just say for CFOs, and you and I have met a lot of CFOs. And let's
Hmm.
just say not all CFOs are created equal.
God.
Unfortunately, it is one of those consulting that anybody can call themselves a CFO, right? Well, there's no licensing to it or anything like that. There's no standard. So people who feels like they're really good with a spreadsheet can call themselves a CFO, and they go consult these small businesses and they charge a lot of money for it, and they suck.
Mm-hmm.
And it harms a small business because
Yes.
they're paying so much money for something that doesn't have the value for it. So
Mm-hmm.
I really love the fact that AI is going to replace that and standardize it,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully will bring up the importance of people like yourself and myself who are there to get it done.
Yeah.
Like we're there to execute on analysis, we're there to execute on what the numbers tell you, I feel like, and what how to pivot from that, than it is the making of the numbers, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, so sorry, Samana, I know you want to retire before all that happens.
I would love to. However, my children are always going to keep me broke, so I'm going to have to work until I die. Anyway, so
Like,
now,
Biden, if you feel like that's the same situation for you.
yeah, absolutely. Before I move on, speaking of which, before I move on to our next set of topics that we will be tackling in season 5, I would love to hear from you. We would love to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your comments. We want to know what you're thinking. We will give you a shout out according to what your email address is. If you don't have your name on there, or if you give us your name, we will give you a shout out. If you give us your business name, we'll do that too. Whatever works for you works for us. And we really just want to hear from you, because in the end, it shouldn't just be a one-way street. We should be making this a bigger conversation. This should be a bigger conversation, and I want it to be. So I don't know, chat away. Anyway, all right. So moving on, we are going to talk about the true cost of payroll. And when I say that, I don't mean what you're paying a person. It's all of the other fees and taxes that you pay in payroll, and can you afford it? And the reason why I wanted to bring that up, because I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of clients of mine who are thinking about switching their contractors over into payroll. And once I brought up how much it's going to cost them, they were like, "Oh, I guess I can't afford payroll." I was like, "Well, it's good that you're even thinking about this, because I know enough people that just go into payroll without thinking about it, and then they're upside down." So, what do you think, Tiffany?
About labor, which is the largest line item in most businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
control and track. Lots of thoughts about it. I think a lot of small businesses start with having contractors, and because they do that, they underestimate the value of their labor, which means they underprice themselves for
Yes.
the long run. And to your point, when you hire somebody, especially if you want to hire them as an employee and not a contractor, you have taxes that you have to consider. You have benefits that you need to consider. You have PTO that you need to also consider, because PTO means unproductive time
Right.
and likely non billable time to your customers.
Mm-hmm.
You have holidays to also consider now. You probably also have some element of HR, because that handbook isn't going to write itself, and templates are great, but it's only probably going to get you 80% of the way there. So most
Right.
likely you're going to have to pay somebody to help you with that one. You have training, right? So if you have people, you have training costs, and then you have some form of management costs. So if you
Right.
don't have a manager or somebody who is a manager title in your business, it doesn't matter. Somebody is still doing the management function. And if it's nobody in your business, most likely is you, which means a portion of your cost is going into managing that employee.
Yeah. I would say the first person you hire is a manager.
Yes.
Second
And
person
then
you
you have to
hire is an
also
employee.
consider equipment, right? So if you have employees, do you want them to use their own computer and equipment, or do you want to use your computer and equipment? In which case also means you probably have to hire IT, because you need somebody to make sure that network is secure and can set up everything for you.
It's like the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. If you give them, you might not be as familiar with that book as I am, but it's like, if you give a mouse a cookie, then you're going to have to give him milk. And if you give him milk, then he's going to have to use your bathroom. And if he uses your bathroom, he's going to need your toilet paper, but your toilet paper is too much for him. So then you have to, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And that's essentially what it's like when you're doing payroll, because you think of the one thing, the cookie, but you don't think about all of the things that happen when you offer that mouse a cookie.
Yeah.
So That I think is also a very important conversation to have. And also, if you are also, I think it's also good for businesses that already have quite a few employees, because over a certain number of employees, things start to change.
True. I mean, not even just, I think you're talking about more than just compliance too, right? It's even
Yeah.
beyond compliance. Things
Yes, yes.
do change when you get to 10 employees, 20
20
employees, 50
employees, 50
employees.
employees. Yep.
For some reason, it jumps like that, which is funny.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 10 is a big change for your company, 20 is another big change. And then from that, for some reason, you're like coasting until 50. And then that's also because once you hit 50, you also do have compliance
Yes.
requirements. So that also makes it a little bit more tough
Mm-hmm.
to deal with. But at the end of the day, this is also why we go back to margin, right? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
calculating that margin correctly, this is why 50% is kind of usually the lowest margin you want to meet, because usually that is calculating a lot of the stuff in already.
Right.
And that way you don't, accidentally eat it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you can accidentally go backwards.
Yes, you can actually go backwards. And then like kind of like a random offshoot. I've seen people do this to themselves all the time,
Mm-hmm.
which is first of all, if you also have employees, you need payroll service, right? Don't try
Right.
to
Totally.
don't first of all, don't try to do yourselves. And I will also say this, don't freaking pay your CPA to go do it. That blows my mind when we have such great companies out there now, like ADP and Paychex. Yes, you may hate them all you want, but they're very well established, right?
Yes.
But yes, it surprises me to this day. There are still companies where like, wait, my CPA process. Oh gosh, okay. By the way, most of them white label ADP anyway. So
That's
then
right.
going back to the same source. But the thing about payroll is they get themselves in a pinch because, I mean, if you hear nothing else we say in this whole episode, this might be the number one thing you walk away with. Is they're like, oh, so I'm hiring people, they need to be paid right away. So to make math simple, if they work for me Monday through Friday, I'm gonna pay them on that Friday for Monday through Friday. Don't ever do that. You are gonna screw yourself so badly, especially when you get more people, because you have what we call no lag time between the end of a pay period and when the paycheck needs to go out. Not to mention, not enough time to float your cash flow, right?
Yeah.
Because just because that person has worked Monday through Friday and you need to pay them on Friday, I guarantee you, your customer is probably not paying you on Friday.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And then you end up with some stoppage with your cash flow. And then what do you do? So, yeah. Mm-hmm. More money, more problems. So, this is an interesting one because government contractors have had a great run. But right now, it's like, I don't even know. Is it like a purge right now?
People are nervous.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like Purge or whatever it was called, 4th of July, Purge, 4th of July. Yeah. What is the future of the government contractors? We have some sense of what it's going to look like, but I think it's important for us to have that kind of conversation. How can you pivot if the government decides you're not valuable?
One, diversify.
Yeah.
So don't do just government work. Also have non-government work that supports your revenue.
Which most of them don't do that.
They don't because they feel like this is a gold mine that'll never go away. And, welcome Trump to the picture. And here we are.
Right.
So, I mean, he's making a lot of changes to everything. Even people who are on, I think, GSA schedule, which is supposed to be one of the most consistent and safest kind of vehicle to be on, is now worried because all that is getting cut drastically. So it is going to be interesting to see what comes next after this iteration. We talked about my theory of things, but I don't know. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, the man, that whole administration, I mean, how many days has it even been?
It feels like 5,000,
How
but
many
it's,
number of executive orders are we on
I
now?
don't know. I don't know.
Like every day I'm just like, oh, so what else did you do today? Because this got to be the fastest moving administration I've ever like encountered
I mean, it
before.
both feels like yesterday and 5,000 days. I don't know where I am right now. Like, it's like an
So
episode of Doctor Who. I don't know.
So this is the type of work that I'm in now, which I love, even though it is particularly stressful at times. But I often walk into companies who needs a turnaround of some kind, and they're at this $1 to $5 million place. And what happened is the systems, the people that they've built their business on to get them over 1 million is no longer the people and the systems that's going to get them over 3 and 5 million. So there's a drastic turn for the business around this time where you basically have to undo everything and then like rebuild it all, which also means usually a lot of people get fired or let go or they resign during this time because there's so much change. Well, so I don't know. I feel like maybe it's something like that where they're going in and doing like the drastic version and cutting everything. And then usually what I do is when they cut everything, you basically run it on a very bootstrap, very slim,
Yeah.
because you're trying to suss out what didn't work and what
Mm-hmm.
needs to be cut and what fat needs to be trimmed even more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start rebuilding the process better, and then you start putting people back in. So I'm hoping the light at the end of this tunnel is that they'll eventually turn that faucet back on once they kind of, dug out what they're trying to dig out. But who knows? Who can anticipate what's going to happen?
Oh my gosh. I watched a skit. I think his name is John Mulaney. Milani. John Mulaney.
Yes, because we're wonderful with names on this podcast.
So great. So great. I find it hilarious
It's
that
been 5 years, and we still cannot pronounce half the people's name properly. Like,
well, maybe
ironic too, because nobody
that's what I
pronounces
said.
our last name properly.
No one can ever say my name correctly. So
Yeah,
maybe it's
that's
my
true.
vindication. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Transference of trauma.
Yes, yes, exactly. Well, I saw it was from 2016. So it was from Trump's first, go around. And he was like, I feel like we have a horse in a hospital. I know that in the end, it's all going to be okay, but the horse has never been in the hospital before, and the hospital's never experienced a horse in a hospital before. So, and every day we're like, I don't know what's going on. What's the horse doing now? And then the newscasters are like, well, what? We have this person who had a bird in a business before. And he's like, get out of here. That's not the same as a horse in a hospital. So it's funny because it's true. We kind of do have a horse in a hospital. None of us had. And then he's like, and then you come to find out that the horse used an elevator. The horse knows how to use an elevator. So that's kind of where we are with Elon. Like he's a horse in a hospital and this whole thing. We
Yeah.
know it's going to be okay in the end, I think. Maybe, I don't know. But
Anybody really know? But
no one really knows.
we do know that this has not been seen before.
Exactly.
You're
It's
kind
like
of
a horse in a hospital.
yeah. That's it. That's how we're going to explain the next 4 years. It's going to be like a
Yes.
horse in a hospital.
Yes. I got to send that to you because it was funny and I was like, "Oh my God. It is still so
Makes a lot of
accurate."
sense and bring up a pretty funny visual.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's where we are. We don't know what the future of anything is going to be at this moment. So, although that will be one of our episodes, it'll probably be a later episode because we just kind of need to see where all the chips are going to fall right now because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 100 days.
Yeah, who knows how they're going to change the contracts? I think like it's interesting because in government contracting, you have, yes, very profitable contracts, but you can also lose your shirt like really, really fast.
Yes.
One of the hardest things about government contracting that a lot of businesses can't get over very well is cash flow.
Yes.
They don't know how to float their cash flow very well because they usually have a huge payroll expense, but the government pays when the government pays.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't float that 30, 45 days the government wants to pay your invoice, or you don't have your, nose together and you can't invoice timely, which just delays it even more, your people needs to get paid. So typically they can't flow that cash flow and they usually become cash flow dry, and that's why they run into problems.
And to no fault of their own, oftentimes people who start government contracting companies are not they themselves business owners or have experience. Oftentimes it'll be engineers who get together, who start a company, or it'll be, whatever other
A
industry
lot
it
of
may be.
technicians that get together who's very good in a certain something,
Yeah.
this very specific outcome that
Mm-hmm.
has all these credentials, and they can essentially answer that RFP. Well, I mean, a government does want you to be around for at least 2 years before you're allowed to get into government contracting, but 2 years is not enough.
No.
First of all, and then what happens in those 2 years is they want to see what they call past performance, which means for those 2 years, a lot of times you're subcontractors,
Mm-hmm.
which means you're still kind of living in this like government ecosystem of how business operates, which is not how commercial business operates
Right.
at all. Like different terms, different wording, different goals. And so it's very strange and very niched.
Mm-hmm.
And so without feeding these government contract, like it's government, I don't know, I think it's going to be a little tough, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also a sign that if you haven't diversified, now would be the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing that is hot topic right now, but not really something until the dust starts to settle, but so we're looking forward to it being a future episode is what going back to the office is going to look like, not for the employees, more so for the employers. Yes, there is going back to the office on the government level, but there's a lot of employers, companies, businesses who are like, okay, you know what? I've decided that I want to go back to the office. We've been doing this remote and remote is not working. We're going to go back to having an office again.
Yeah. Uh,
And, and what does that look like?
I know you've always done your company remote,
Yeah,
and I was hybrid when I had my business, but I think I'd lean more. If I was going to have a business with a big team of people, I would probably lean more toward having it in person or some kind of hybrid than fully remote.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've floated that idea around a lot over the years where I feel like maybe I should have an office. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And sometimes most of the time I feel like it's okay. I don't think I need to do that just yet. But maybe I will. I don't know.
I also would say that what working is like 10 years ago is not what it's like now. There are
Not at all.
far more distractions for somebody at home than there ever was. So
Mhm.
10 years ago, what? YouTube was just starting.
Yeah.
Um, Instagram may have just been starting. I'm not even sure. Facebook was still hot. Like there was no TikTok, there was no 1 minute reels. There weren't all these things where people kind of go down this rabbit hole where they're at work, they pick up their phone, and now they're like on the phone for 30 minutes because they're just watching reel after reel. I think there's so much of that distraction that it's too easy at home. I get distracted at home and I run my own business. So if there's anybody more productive than a business owner, I'd love to see who that is, right? But I get distracted.
Well, and you and I have talked about this in a previous season, probably either one or two, and I stand firm on my inability to work in an office.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't. I am head down when I'm working from home. I am head down and I knock it all out. But when I'm in an office, I am so distracted.
Yeah. So I'm with you, dude. That's why I think in the end, if all else being equal, and I didn't have to choose between in office, out of office, I like the hybrid model.
Right.
There are certain days you're in office, you do your team meetings, you do like
Mm-hmm.
stuff you need to get done with other people, you get your social FaceTime in, you get your relationship and connection in. But then there are days where I'm heads down, my phone is on do not disturb, my emails are off for blocks at a time, so I can actually knock through things.
Right.
And yeah, that's important because even right now, like I find myself, like I go to client offices and then I get swept up in conversations, right? Even if it is productive conversations, but guess what? Am I sitting there talking to you? I'm not checking my email. I'm not doing things I need to need to do operationally.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get that time where you're like you still have to do tactical stuff. I guess that's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
so I like the hybrid. I get how government agencies are, asking for people to get back. I think there's a very small percentage of the population that could truly work remote and do it effectively. Much smaller than people are willing to admit.
I don't disagree with that.
Yes.
So now Tiffany and I are going to share with you not necessarily books and apps or platforms that we recommend. It's going to be more of the things that we're currently using. I have discovered a few new fun toys. And I don't know, Tiffany, are you messing around with anything new that you're like, I think
Oh,
everybody should know it?
I have. Just like the last month or so.
Okay.
I adopted Notion.
Okay.
Took me a minute.
Yeah.
Now fully on board.
Yeah, I love Notion. It is still lacking in some ways, but like it's really awesome in so many ways. And I've been saying that if Notion and Financial Sense could get married and have a kid, that would be awesome because that's like one thing that's missing from Notion is the ability to request something from someone in an email with encryption.
Oh, okay. Well, I actually don't know anything about financial sense, so you might want to
Yeah.
share.
So why don't you first tell everyone give a quick breakdown of Notion, and then I'll go into financial sense.
Okay, so Notion is, oh gosh, how do you explain what Notion is? So people who are like use Evernote, so I switched over from Evernote, or you use, like if you're Microsoft Teams, you've used the planner before. So like Notion's a combination of all these things. So in this one platform, you can create and organize like all your notes, but also different types of media as well. And you also can create it in different formats. So you have like lists, and you have boards, and you have pages, and you have bullets. Like you just have all this array of options. And I about a year or two ago, I did try Notion, and I'm like, yo, I'm not smart enough for this. Like I can't figure this out. So I decided to go into Notion because I think Evernote like raised their prices, and I'm like, that's way too expensive for me to just note take. And I was like, I need to find something else that I can also merge my planning and my, project management and my note taking all in one place. And that's pretty much Notion. So
Yeah.
everything I have is in there as far as my calendars, my project lists, my to-dos, compilations that I have to use later for, like if I'm reading something or I see something online, I compile it in Notion so I can then make some kind of content out of it. So it just becomes a one place, one stop shop.
Mm-hmm.
And then I bought the subscription, up level subscription for Notion
Mm-hmm.
AI.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've been using Notion AI quite a bit. Like it's not, I mean, it's not basic AI, but it is better than most. And
Mm-hmm.
it is kind of cool the things that it does spit out, especially like summarizing like a whole bunch of notes and things like that. It's pretty spot on, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've been using a lot of that to also help me organize my 5 million things, and that happens at the same time all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to use Notion as an office management tool, and I
Okay.
used it in so many ways, and I had different spaces for everyone in management.
Yeah.
And it was great for me to be able to see what everyone was doing, like what was in the done pile, what was in the working on pile, things that had questions. But the thing that it was missing was the ability to kind of send checklists to my clients. And I wanted to be able to request things. The first time I came across a platform similar to that was when my CPA sent me something through Carbon.
Mhm.
And I really liked Carbon, but I felt like one, it was missing a few things that I wanted, which were Notion related things. And also I felt that it was too expensive for what it was offering me. I
Mhm.
looked into Financial Sense, and that to me is giving me as much as I can possibly get from one product that isn't Notion. So Financial Sense is really geared towards those in the financial field. So accountants, bookkeepers, or anybody, a financial advisor. I don't think financial advisors could use it, but anyone who's in the financial field. It does have its own encryption. It has a client vault similar to LastPass. So it takes on the role of something like LastPass, something like NoteShred. It is connected to, it's not, is it connected to DocuSign? You can ask for a client to sign something right in the product. You can chat with a client within the product. I like that it gives me a spreadsheet similar to Airtable, and I can categorize my clients according to either the industry that they're in or the product or rather the service that we provide. It's really, really fascinating. I love it. It's getting ready to introduce Kanban boards. So that would be that module of Notion that I really enjoyed that doesn't exist in Financial Sense just yet, but they're growing.
Yeah, it sounds like a newish software. It's like a firm management. It's like a
Yeah, it's like a firm management, but that's how I am making remote work.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's great because I can also, like on one page, I can see how far along certain client books are. And there's also kind of what I call a bat signal that one of my bookkeepers could put in there once I see needs help or need help or stuck or something along those lines. We know who they're talking about and what the problem is.
Right.
So It's been fantastic. Another thing that I'm really enjoying is brand spanking new, which is Gemini. And Gemini is through Google. There's been a few meetings that I have used Gemini to take notes, and it's been pretty spot on
Yep.
with, I mean, it definitely rivals Otter.
Yeah, one of our clients is using Copilot, so
Mm,
which is the Microsoft AI,
correct. Yeah.
which is pretty
So,
decent too.
yeah. So, I mean, it's the future. And I mean, Canva's not new to anybody. However, the way in which I've been using Canva, especially within Jotform and with MailChimp, I've been discovering how, in what ways I can use the brand kit to create a 360 experience with my company.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good way of putting it, though. I love Canva. I've used Canva a lot for the last 2 years. I probably was one of their, like, when they were first coming out, and I was like, this is the most brilliant, like,
Hmm.
creation. Also inspiring, too, because I think the founders are pretty young. I want to say they're, like, early 30s,
Yes.
like in their late 20s when they started it.
Yeah.
It's pretty inspirational about how they all came about, and it's just
Hmm.
everything it does is amazing. Like, I don't think I could create half the content I do. Like it's almost just skipping the whole need to like pick color and design and
Hmm.
like all the stuff. I'm like, I could do everything in freaking Canva.
Yeah. So not too long ago, they had and I like that they do these, workshop, well, workshop isn't the right word, but I guess presentations even that they invite their Canva users to, and you learn a lot about what they're planning to bring to the table, what they're working on, what they're developing. You can ask questions. They make it it's very integrated. I really, really enjoy that. And it's exciting. It makes you feel like you're a part of their growth.
Yeah,
And
think about community, which is really sweet.
yeah, yeah. And I've been experiencing that with Financial Sense as well, which has been fantastic also.
That's
So
amazing.
whether this is just how these two companies do it and they're doing a great job of it, or this is the direction in which these new platforms are going, is to integrate the user as part of the experience. I don't know, but I love it.
I would say that you're probably pretty right that more and more things are trending toward just building communities
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is that you do. And I think as the world becomes more remote, which I know people are going back to work and they're going into the office. I mean, COVID has happened. COVID has had an impact. I think a lot of people are still going to be remote. They're looking for ways to stay connected, and
Yeah,
online communities are the way to do it, especially when
right.
we shared sense of either software, design, or something that you feel like you can kind of get together and all geek out about.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nice. I think it's kind of a cool direction to see where business is going with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I have been doing this for so many years, business, not the podcast. We've been doing this for so many years that it's still so exciting to me. And yes, we are going into our fifth season, but it still feels like, the honeymoon. It still feels like there's so many things that we haven't even tapped into yet. So I'm super excited about all of the things that we talked about that we're going to talk about, but also all of the things that we're going to discover along the way that, we'll have shows about.
I think that even, I mean, so many years later, I mean, obviously we are not full-time podcast hosts
No,
by any means.
no.
Okay. I was like talking to somebody the other day and they had turned on for the first time I saw them online, like we had a meeting online and literally straight, it was like a podcast studio kind of like layout.
Oh,
Where they had like the mic coming in and then they had like the background all you could tell like it was all like nicely staged, right? And I'm like, yeah, after 5 years, still haven't figured that part out
we
yet.
ain't
Like
got that.
I don't have the time.
Nope.
Time and I also don't have the time, right? A lot of this is maybe like we're still growing out a sense of betting that our content and what we say will
Yeah.
exceed the value put on our look and sound because my gosh, have we struggled with those in the past.
I mean, if you're going to be watching us or if you're going to be listening to us, you should know what you're getting yourself into. We know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. And don't expect us to know what we don't know.
So I think our theme has been like if it gets too complicated and we don't have fun with it anymore, we're just gonna stop doing it, right?
Absolutely.
So like when we tried to start doing this in person and it got too complicated, too time consuming, we were like, I mean, I think you and I were both kind of feeling like, well, this is a bit of a stretch
Yeah.
between our normal day
Yeah,
jobs, I guess you can call it. And so we were like, let's screw it. Like, we're just going to go back to doing it remotely because I think we'd rather do the podcast than not do it at all.
for sure.
And I think like tripping over the fact that we're not sitting in a nicely lit room with a background light or some, high powered
Hey, we
camera.
got this now. Well, I mean, we got that. We've got a nice little poster board with our pictures on it.
So
Don't expect much more than that.
yeah, I think at this point is like we're just gonna be like, I think it's more important for us to get our voices out there than
Yes.
go through. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Still maybe one day. I don't
Maybe
know.
one of our listeners will feel sorry for us and donate us a studio, but otherwise, you're not going to get much more than this from us.
But I mean, we are so busy.
Yeah. Well, yes, we are. And thankfully, but it's also, yes, we are busy. However, it is extremely important to us to continue conveying to our listeners and to anyone who wants to be a listener or a watcher what the business is behind a small business because it's almost selfish, right? We know a lot about business and we want to share what we know about business with people who want to learn how to be a better business owner. Because if you own a company or organization, you are committed to giving people work. You're employing people. They're making money. They're spending in their local community. You're paying local taxes. The local area is just going to grow. The economy is going to continue to grow. And that's part of the circle of life. And so that's why I feel, especially myself, I'm sure it's the same for you, are committed to making sure that these businesses stay in business because it's a butterfly effect.
I do think, again, my thought has always been, the world would just be better with more entrepreneurs, or if everybody was entrepreneurially minded.
Yes.
I feel like I have grown and changed and become a better person by what business has taught me about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Hope for anybody else who's brave enough out there to go start a business from scratch, right? Everybody can use all the help they can get in the beginning. And so, I feel like we're lucky enough to pretty much get to the other side of things
Mm-hmm.
that, paying it forward is very much top of mind. And I think it's like that for a lot of people. And so, yes, could we go and maybe rent a studio? Absolutely. Yes. Can we spend time out of our day to go commute? Which, by the way, if you don't live in Northern Virginia, you don't know what commuting is.
Oh my
So
God.
like trying to get from your side of town and my side of town to an equal spot, maybe in the middle, or like we carve out a room in our place to go do, like, all those are options that, yes, are we capable of doing it? Absolutely. But like we said, we're like, the moment it doesn't feel fun anymore and it feels like a second job, we're not going to do it because we all have multiple jobs per se, right? You have to keep not only your business going, Savannah, you also have little human beings you got to keep alive. Kind of important, and also a large human being.
I mean, I have large human beings too, but I still got to make sure that they're alive because I feel like they're constantly like ping ponging through a forest on fire. I
Not to
don't.
mention your four-legged,
Yeah.
friendly
Then
business.
there's them. There's
Yeah.
them too.
And I myself have a total of 3 separately running businesses and an organization that is kicking off. And,
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of clients because I don't need to have a lot of clients, but the ones I have are, very busy and they go through a lot. And, I'm there with them every step of the way. So it almost feels like another job for every
Yeah.
single client. So, it is what it is.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we're going to keep on pumping out these episodes because we're still passionate about it until the passion is gone. We'll let you
And
know.
I will say too, though, how long you've been in business for how long, Savannah? Like,
14.
okay, so since you were like 10 years old, I understand. Similar here, right? Because we met
Hmm.
when we were first just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how old your kid is? 14? Yeah, because when I met you, you were pregnant with him, right? Which is crazy because now he is, running
And he's
around
a middle
your
schooler
office
now.
talking back to you.
Yep. Got peach fuzz and like hair
Oh my
growing in
gosh.
places.
Did
It's
his voice drop yet?
yes, and it's weird. He's taller than me now. It's bizarre.
So I will say in 14, 15 years' time, over the hundreds of businesses we have dealt with, hundreds, because that's just the uniqueness
For
of us
sure.
being in this industry and being such an intimate part of a business and finance and accounting, hundreds. Still the same challenges, still the same questions, most of the same problems. And it's not that just because you're at $100,000 versus a million versus 10 million, like there's different sets of challenges. It's literally the same thing, just more volume.
Yep. More money, more
So
problems.
there is a pattern there, which is why, till this day, we are talking about business because I feel like these problems are going to be evergreen. And I think any new business owners are going to find themselves in it. So as long as there's business around and we have a camera and a mic and an internet
The chair,
chair,
microphone.
we'll keep recording
Yep.
until you tell us to get off stage. I don't know. You tell
Yeah.
us.
Sounds good to me. Please hit the like buttons and the follow buttons and tell all your friends about us. Our show is on all of your preferred podcast platforms, social media, and YouTube. We'd love for you to also share our episodes. And like I said, if you have a comment, if you have a question, you can email us, put it on any of the,
It'd be easier for you to leave a comment than
so
email
much
us.
easier.
The two of us not looking at our emails as much as we should because I don't know about you, but I also have like 6 other email
I don't,
inboxes.
I don't even want to talk about it.
You probably have so many for each one of your clients and
I
your staff.
know.
Nope. So leave a comment.
But leave a comment and we'll give you a shout out. So, wherever it is that you see us, leave a comment. And all of our links that we're going to be sharing, Tiffany said that you were going to, what did you say you were going to leave a link for? See, I already,
I'm not gonna.
Goldfish Brain?
Yeah, goldfish brain. It's okay. I'm there too.
Mhm.
No, I'm not gonna. So you know how I don't know. I do this too. When somebody's like watching like a video and you're like, let's go to comments. Can somebody just summarize this for me?
Oh, yes, summarize. That's what you were going to do. And not all of our
Yes,
links. The summary will be posted below. That's what.
I'm gonna be the paragraph guy for ourselves.
Awesome.
So yes, but in less detail than a paragraph guy because we really do want you to listen.
Yeah, please.
It'll go by quick though. Like today,
Yeah,
I felt like the show will go by quick because we're hitting up so many different topics.
absolutely.
You hear one that you like though, like the button, leave a comment so then we know should we do another episode that's a little bigger out of
Yeah.
it and get into the details of it all because we can. We don't have to hold back any secrets.
Nope.
We're not selling a course. We're
I'm
not
not
selling
losing
it.
anything. I'm
Yeah,
good.
we don't need to. So we're more than happy to just tell you what it is.
I'm so good. Until next time, mind the business behind your business. I feel like I need to put it to a jingle because all great successes start small. Bye.